Hello everyone, I'm Didac Folk, I live in Spain and I'm passionate about economics. That's why I make these videos to share my interest and also to improve my English. In today's video, we'll talk about what GDP is and why it matters. GDP, it means gross domestic product. Is one of the most important numbers in economics. Governments talk about it, new channels mention it every week, and economists treat it like the heartbeat of a country's economy. But what does it actually mean? Let's make it simple. GDP measures the total value of everything a country produces in a specific period of time, usually a year. Every good, every services, every product, all of it combined. If a country were a giant factory, GDP would be the number that tells you how much that factory produced. There are three main ways to calculate it, but the most intuitive one is this one. GDP, remember, gross domestic product. GDP is the sum of all spending in an economy: consumption, investment, government spending, and exports minus imports. But why do we care about it? Why do we have to think about it? Because GDP helps us understand whether an economy is growing, stagnating, or shrinking. When GDP goes up, it usually means more jobs, more business activity, and more income. But when GDP goes down, it signals the opposite: less production, fewer jobs, and potentially a recession. But here's the important part about GDP. GDP is useful, but it's not perfect. For example, GDP tells us the size of an economy, but not its quality. A country might have a high GDP, but a terrible inequity, inequality, sorry. Another country might have a smaller GDP but happier citizens. GDP also doesn't measure health, education, community well being, or environmental damage. If a country cuts down a forest and sells the wood, GDP goes up, but the long term cost isn't reflected anywhere. There is also an interesting debate among economists. Does GDP represent real wealth or simply the amount of money being spent? If governments print money or if central banks keep interest rates low, spending increases, GDP rises. But does this mean the country is actually richer? Not necessarily. Sometimes it just means more money is entering the system. Another limitation is that GDP ignores who gets the money. If a country has a booming technology sector, GDP might rise dramatically, even if the most citizens don't feel richer. So GDP can grow while many people still struggle financially. Despite all of these limitations, GDP remains a powerful indicator. It's like a thermometer. It doesn't tell you everything about your health, but if the number changes drastically, something important is happening. GDP matters because it shapes decisions. Governments plan budgets based on GDP, businesses decide investments based on GDP, central banks set interest rates based on GDP, and international investors compare countries using GDP. It's not a perfect measure, but it's an essential one. Understanding GDP helps you understand the big picture: how an economy grows, how it slows down, and how it affects jobs, prices, and the opportunities available to people. So, the next time you hear that GDP is growing or shrinking, you know it's not just a random number. It's a signal of how healthy or unhealthy a country's economy really is. Thank you all for watching this video, and if you want to support me, you'll find my online shop in the description. There you can buy my thyme and mint herbal infusions, which I produce myself. I grow the plants on my own land and then I mix them to create this infusion. If you want to support me, you can buy my infusions in my online shop, linked in the description. Thank you all again for watching and see you next time.